The Los Angeles skyline glittered under a late-night haze, but inside a modest apartment in Echo Park, the air was thick with tension. Mia, 29, burst through the door at 2 a.m., her heels clicking sharply against the hardwood. She tossed her purse onto the counter, the clatter cutting through the silence. Her husband, Anthony, 32, sat on the edge of the couch, his laptop open to a half-finished coding project. His eyes, heavy with worry, tracked her entrance. He'd been waiting for hours, his texts unanswered, his calls ignored. "Where were you?" Anthony's voice was low, steady, but laced with concern. He closed the laptop, setting it aside, his hands resting on his knees as if bracing for her response. Mia laughed, a sharp, dismissive sound, and leaned against the kitchen counter. "Oh, please, Anthony. Don't start with the interrogation. I was out, living my life. You don't own me." She kicked off her shoes, one skidding across the floor, and crossed her arms. "You think you can control where I go? Who I see?" Anthony's jaw tightened, but he didn't rise to her bait. "I was worried, Mia. You didn't answer. I just want to know you're safe." "Safe?" She scoffed, stepping closer, her voice dripping with mockery. "You're so predictable. Always sitting here, glued to your code, waiting like some loyal dog. You know what? I could replace you in 24 hours, Anthony. Any man in this city would kill to have me. Better than you. Richer. Stronger. You're nothing special." The words hit like a punch, each syllable sharp and deliberate. Anthony's face didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes, a spark of resolve igniting in the quiet. He stood slowly, his movements deliberate, and met her gaze. "Is that what you think?" he asked, his tone calm but heavy with unspoken weight. Mia smirked, mistaking his restraint for weakness. "It's what I know. I'm the catch here, not you. Men line up for me. You're lucky I even come home." She turned, grabbing a glass from the cabinet, pouring herself water as if the conversation was over. Anthony watched her, his silence louder than any argument. He'd spent years supporting her, late nights helping her pitch her startup idea, weekends tweaking her business plan, mornings making her coffee before she rushed to meetings. And now this? Her words weren't just a betrayal. They were a dismissal of everything he'd given. But he didn't shout. He didn't beg. Instead, he nodded once, almost to himself, and said, "We'll see, Mia." She barely registered his words, already scrolling through her phone, laughing at a message from someone else. Anthony walked past her, his steps measured, and closed the bedroom door behind him. In the quiet of the room, he sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. Her voice echoed in his mind. "Replace you in 24 hours. Something inside him shifted, not anger, but clarity. He wasn't the man she thought she could discard. Not anymore. The next morning, the apartment was still. Mia slept in, sprawled across the bed, oblivious to the shift that had begun. Anthony was already up, his coffee cooling on the kitchen table as he typed furiously on his laptop. He wasn't sulking or stewing. He was planning. His inbox pinged with a message from his boss. A new project, high stakes, with a chance to lead. Anthony replied instantly, volunteering to take point. He opened another tab, searching for leadership courses in San Francisco. His fingers paused over the keyboard, then typed, "Apartment rentals, downtown SF." Mia stumbled into the kitchen around noon, rubbing her eyes. "You're still here," she teased, expecting him to snap or sulk. But Anthony just glanced up, his expression unreadable. "Got work to do," he said, his voice flat. She frowned, unsettled by his calm, but shrugged it off, pouring herself juice and checking her phone. Another message from a guy named Kyle, a flashy salesman who'd been texting her for weeks. She smiled, already planning her next night out. Anthony didn't ask where she was going. He didn't need to. Her words from the night before had drawn a line, and he was already stepping over it. That afternoon, he met with his boss, pitching a bold idea for the new project, a machine learning tool that could streamline their clients' operations. His boss raised an eyebrow, impressed. "You're stepping up, Anthony. Keep this up, and you're looking at a promotion." Anthony nodded, his mind already racing ahead. This wasn't about proving Mia wrong. It was about proving himself right. By evening, Mia was out again, her laughter echoing as she left for another party. Anthony stayed late at the office, diving into the project with a focus he hadn't tapped in years. His colleagues noticed, exchanging glances as he sketched out ideas on a whiteboard, his voice steady, commanding. For the first time, he wasn't just the reliable coder in the background. He was a leader, and it felt right. Over the next week, Anthony's routine shifted. He worked late, not out of avoidance, but ambition. He enrolled in a leadership program, scheduling classes around his job. He reached out to a contact in San Francisco, a friend from college who'd joined a promising startup. "We need someone like you," his friend said over a call. "Think about it. Big opportunity." Anthony didn't hesitate. "Send me the details." Meanwhile, Mia floated through her days, oblivious to the changes. She met Kyle for drinks, basking in his compliments and promises of VIP parties. "You're too good for that guy you're with," Kyle said, leaning close over a cocktail. Mia laughed, tossing her hair, but his words lingered. She didn't correct him about Anthony. Why bother? She was untouchable, or so she thought. But cracks were forming. Her startup, a vague app idea she'd been pitching for months, was stalling. Investors weren't returning her calls. Her presentations lacked the polish Anthony used to add. She brushed it off, telling herself she didn't need him. She had options, men like Kyle, nights like these. Yet, when she came home at dawn, the apartment felt emptier. Anthony was already gone, his laptop closed, his coffee mug washed. She didn't know he'd spent the night researching apartments in San Francisco, narrowing down a sleek loft with a view of the bay. One evening, Anthony packed a small bag, essentials only. He left a note on the counter. Rent's paid for 2 months. Good luck, Mia. When she found it, her stomach dropped. She called his name, but the apartment was silent. His closet was half empty, his favorite jacket gone. For the first time, Mia felt a pang of unease. She texted him, "Where are you?" No reply. She laughed it off, telling herself he'd be back, begging. But deep down, a small voice whispered, "What if he doesn't?" Anthony's new life in San Francisco began with a single step, signing the lease for a loft near the Embarcadero. He moved in quietly, his belongings unpacked in a day. The space was functional, with only a desk, a bed, and a view of the Bay Bridge that kept him grounded. His focus wasn't on settling in, it was on building. At his company, the machine learning project he'd pitched gained traction. Late nights at the office became routine, not out of obligation, but hunger. His team respected his precision, his ability to break down complex problems into actionable steps. Within weeks, the client approved a prototype, and Anthony's name started circulating in higher circles. He enrolled in the leadership program, attending evening classes twice a week. The sessions sharpened his instincts, teaching him to pitch ideas with authority and navigate office politics. His college friend, Marcus, reached out again, pressing him to join the San Francisco startup. "We're closing a funding round soon," Marcus said over coffee at a bustling cafe near Mission Street. "Your skills could put us over the edge." Anthony hesitated, loyal to his current team, but the offer lingered, a chance to leap, not climb. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Mia's confidence held firm, but cracks were spreading. She leaned into her nightlife, meeting Kyle for drinks at a rooftop bar in West Hollywood. He was all charm, promising introductions to big players who could fund her app. She soaked it up, ignoring the warning signs, his vague answers, his habit of dodging her calls after midnight. One night, over martinis, she pitched her startup idea, expecting enthusiasm. Kyle shrugged. "Sounds cool, but you need a better hook. And maybe a tech guy to make it real." The comment stung, reminding her of Anthony's quiet expertise, but she brushed it off, ordering another round. Back home, Mia noticed the silence. Anthony's absence wasn't just physical. The apartment felt hollow without his steady presence. Bills arrived, rent, utilities, her credit card from too many nights out. She'd always relied on Anthony to handle these, his paychecks covering what her startup dreams couldn't. Now, with the rent note he'd left ticking down, pressure mounted. She texted Kyle for a loan, framing it as a business investment. His reply was curt, "Not my thing, Mia. Let's keep it fun." Her stomach twisted. Fun wasn't paying the bills. Anthony, meanwhile, thrived. His prototype launched successfully, earning him a bonus and an invitation to present at a tech conference in San Francisco. He prepared meticulously, practicing his slides until they were flawless. At the conference, he met Emily, a marketing strategist with a sharp mind and a warm laugh. She approached him after his talk, asking pointed questions about his project's scalability. Their conversation spilled into dinner, then coffee the next day. Emily wasn't just impressed by his work, she saw his drive, his quiet strength. "You're not what I expected from a coder," she said, smiling over her latte. "Most don't have your vision." Anthony chuckled, deflecting, but her words stuck. Mia's world, however, was unraveling. Her startup pitch flopped at a local investor meetup. Without Anthony's input, her slides were sloppy, her numbers shaky. Investors smiled politely but passed. She called a friend, Sarah, for advice, only to hear a rumor. Anthony was killing it in San Francisco, working on something big. He's different now, Sarah said. Focused. Happy. Mia laughed it off, but the words gnawed at her. She scrolled through social media, finding a photo of Anthony at a tech event, sharp and confident, shaking hands with a venture capitalist. Her chest tightened. He wasn't supposed to move on. Desperate to prove she didn't need him, Mia doubled down with Kyle. She invited him to a glitzy party in Santa Monica, hoping to lock in his support. He showed up late, already distracted, flirting with a model by the bar. When Mia confronted him, he laughed. Chill, Mia. I'm not your boyfriend. You said you were done with that guy, right? So what's the problem? She left the party alone, her phone buzzing with unpaid bill notifications. In a moment of weakness, she texted Anthony. Can we talk? Miss you. No response. Anthony, now 3 months into his new life, wasn't looking back. He accepted Marcus's offer, joining the startup as a lead engineer. The role came with equity and a pay bump, enough to make his loft permanent. He and Emily grew closer, bonding over late-night strategy sessions and shared ambition. She challenged him, pushing him to think bigger, and he admired her honesty. No games, no pretense. One night, as they walked along the Embarcadero, she asked about his past. He mentioned Mia briefly, his voice neutral. She thought I was replaceable, he said. Emily touched his arm. Her loss. Back in L.A., Mia's bravado crumbled. The landlord sent a final notice. Pay the rent or vacate. Her startup was dead, her savings drained. She called Kyle, only to find he'd blocked her. Other men she'd flirted with, promising types from her nights out, ghosted her too. Their interest was fleeting, tied to her charm, not her substance. For the first time, Mia felt the weight of her choices. She'd mocked Anthony's loyalty, but now, without it, she was sinking. She opened her phone, staring at his unanswered text, and typed again, I was wrong. Please call. Silence answered. 6 months into his San Francisco life, Anthony was no longer the man Mia had dismissed. His startup role had him leading a team of engineers, pushing their app, a productivity tool blending AI and user-friendly design, toward a major launch. The work consumed him, but it was fuel, not burden. He thrived on late-night coding sessions, brainstorming with Marcus, and refining pitches for investors. His confidence grew, not loud or showy, but steady, like a machine humming at peak performance. Emily became a constant, her marketing expertise shaping the startup's brand. Their partnership spilled beyond work. Dinners at hole-in-the-wall taco joints, walks through Golden Gate Park, debates about tech trends. She didn't just admire his skill, she valued his integrity, a quality he'd once poured into a marriage that mocked it. In Los Angeles, Mia's world was collapsing. The landlord's eviction notice arrived, taped to her apartment door like a public shaming. Her startup was dead, investors long gone, her pitch deck abandoned on a cluttered desk. She'd burned through her savings, maxed out 2 credit cards, and leaned on friends who were now dodging her calls. Kyle, the salesman who'd promised connections, had moved on to a new city, leaving her with nothing but vague texts and a bar tab she couldn't pay. She tried another contact, a music producer named Derek, who'd flirted with her at a club. He took her to dinner, listened to her startup woes, then suggested she lighten up and join him for a weekend in Vegas. When she pushed for business advice, he ghosted her. The pattern was clear. Men wanted her company, not her commitment. Mia's pride, once her armor, was now her cage. She sat in her half-empty apartment, scrolling through LinkedIn, where Anthony's profile popped up. Lead engineer, NextGen Solutions. A post congratulated him on securing $5 million in funding. Her throat tightened. She clicked further, finding a photo of him and Emily at a startup event, their hands brushing as they laughed over drinks. The comments stung. Power couple. Anthony's killing it. Mia slammed her laptop shut, her pulse racing. He wasn't supposed to succeed without her. He was supposed to crumble. Desperate, she dialed Anthony again. Voicemail. She left a message, her voice shaking. I know I messed up. Can we just talk? I'm not who I was. No reply. She tried emailing, a long apology about her arrogance, her mistakes. It bounced back. His address had changed. Panic crept in. Mia wasn't just losing ground. She was losing the narrative. She'd told herself Anthony was nothing, but the world was proving her wrong. In San Francisco, Anthony barely thought of Mia. His days were packed, coding, investor meetings, mentoring his team. The startup's app was gaining buzz, with beta testers raving about its sleek interface. Emily pushed for a bold marketing campaign, and Anthony backed her, their ideas syncing effortlessly. One night, over pizza in the office, she challenged him to present at a major tech conference. "You're ready," she said, tossing a crust onto her plate. "Show them what you've got." He agreed, spending weeks crafting a keynote that blended technical depth with vision. The conference was a turning point. His speech drew applause, and venture capitalists lined up to talk afterward. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "You're not just an engineer anymore, man. You're a leader." Mia, meanwhile, clung to a last-ditch plan. She heard about the conference through a mutual friend and saw Anthony's name on the speaker list. If she could see him, make him listen, maybe she could undo the damage. She scraped together her last savings for a bus ticket to San Francisco, her stomach churning with dread and defiance. At the conference, she slipped into the crowded hall, her heart pounding as Anthony took the stage. He spoke with authority, breaking down complex AI concepts with ease, the audience hanging on his words. Mia barely recognized him, not the quiet coder she'd mocked, but a man commanding attention. When the session ended, she lingered near the exit, hoping to catch him. He emerged, flanked by Emily and Marcus, deep in conversation. Mia stepped forward, her voice cracking. "Anthony, wait." He stopped, his eyes narrowing briefly before softening into indifference. Emily glanced at him, a silent question, but stayed close. "What do you want, Mia?" he asked, his tone even, no trace of anger. "I need to talk," she said, stepping closer. "I was wrong. I didn't mean those things I said. You're not replaceable." Her hands trembled, clutching her bag. Anthony studied her, his silence cutting deeper than any words. The crowd moved around them, oblivious to the tension. "This isn't the place," he said finally. "I've got a meeting." He turned, Emily at his side, and walked away. Mia stood frozen, the weight of her failure crushing her. She'd come to reclaim him, but he was already out of reach. 9 months after leaving Los Angeles, Anthony's life in San Francisco was a steady ascent. The startup's app launched to rave reviews, climbing app store charts and drawing attention from tech blogs. His role as lead engineer expanded, with investors now seeking his input on strategy. He and Emily worked in sync, their late-night sessions blending code tweaks with marketing plans. Outside work, their bond deepened. Cooking classes in the Mission District, weekend hikes in Marin, quiet evenings debating industry trends. Emily's sharp wit and genuine support grounded him, a stark contrast to the chaos he'd left behind. He wasn't chasing validation. He was building a life rooted in mutual respect. In Los Angeles, Mia's reality was unraveling faster than she could manage. The eviction notice forced her out of the apartment, and she crashed on a friend's couch in Silver Lake, her belongings stuffed into 2 suitcases. Her startup dreams were ashes. Investors had ghosted, her app idea mocked online for its flaws. She took a part-time gig as a barista, the only job she could land without experience. The work was grueling, her shifts filled with impatient customers and spilled coffee. Friends who once flocked to her parties now ignored her texts, their lives moving on while hers stagnated. She'd burned bridges with her arrogance, and the isolation stung. Mia's thoughts kept circling back to Anthony. She scoured social media, finding posts about his startup success, a TechCrunch feature, a panel invite, a photo of him and Emily at a charity run. Each update was a jab, proof of his rise while she sank. She tried reaching out again, sending a LinkedIn message. "Congrats on the launch. Can we meet? I owe you an apology." No response. Her desperation grew, pushing her to a reckless decision. She borrowed money from her last loyal friend, Sarah, and booked a train to San Francisco. She'd confront Anthony at his new home, make him see her regret. Anthony, unaware of Mia's plans, was preparing for a critical investor pitch. The startup needed another funding round to scale, and his presentation was key. He and Emily rehearsed in the office, her feedback sharpening his delivery. After a long day, they grabbed takeout and walked to his loft, laughing about a botched demo. Inside, Anthony's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "I'm in SF. Need to see you." "Mia?" He stared at the screen, then set it down without replying. Emily noticed, but didn't pry. "Everything okay?" she asked. He nodded. "Just the past trying to catch up." Mia arrived at Anthony's building, a sleek tower near the Embarcadero. She paced the lobby, nerves fraying, until the concierge let her up after a hesitant call to Anthony. At his door, she knocked, her hands shaking. Anthony answered, his expression neutral, no trace of surprise. Emily stood behind him, holding a stack of pitch notes, her presence calm but firm. Mia, why are you here? Anthony asked, his voice steady, cutting through the tension. I need to fix this, Mia said, her words tumbling out. I was wrong, Anthony. I shouldn't have said those things, shouldn't have treated you like that. You were everything to me, and I threw it away. Please, give me a chance to make it right. Her voice cracked, her eyes pleading. She stepped forward, reaching for his hand, but he stepped back, creating distance. Anthony exhaled, his gaze unwavering. You said I was replaceable, Mia? You laughed at my loyalty, my effort. I spent years building you up, and you tore me down in one night. I'm not that man anymore. He paused, letting the words settle. I've moved on. Not to hurt you, but to live. Emily set the notes down, stepping closer to Anthony, her silence speaking volumes. Mia's chest tightened, the sight of their ease together a blade to her pride. I'm sorry, she whispered, tears spilling. I didn't know what I had. Anthony shook his head. You did know. You just thought it wasn't enough. He opened the door wider, a clear signal. Go back to LA, Mia. Figure out who you want to be. Mia stumbled out, the door closing softly behind her. She rode the elevator down, her reflection in the mirrored walls showing a woman undone, not by Anthony's rejection, but by her own choices. Back in the chilly San Francisco night, she walked aimlessly, the city's hum indifferent to her regret. Anthony's words echoed. Figure out who you want to be. For the first time, she realized she had no answer. A year after Mia's cruel words, Anthony stood at the helm of his startup's success in San Francisco. The app, now a staple in productivity suites, secured a $20 million funding round, with Anthony's leadership earning him a co-founder title. His days buzzed with investor calls, team huddles, and strategic planning. Emily remained his anchor, her marketing campaigns driving the app's viral growth. Their relationship, built on trust and shared goals, deepened through quiet moments, coding side by side, biking across the Golden Gate Bridge, or strategizing over coffee. Anthony wasn't just thriving. He was whole, valued for his mind and heart. In Los Angeles, Mia's life was a shadow of her former confidence. Evicted from her apartment, she'd moved into a cramped studio in North Hollywood, scraping by on barista wages. Her social circle had vanished, friends tired of her complaints, suitors bored when her charm couldn't mask her desperation. Her startup, once a flickering dream, was forgotten, its website offline. Nights were spent scrolling job boards, her resume thin without Anthony's technical polish. The men she'd once bragged would line up for her, Kyle, Derek, others, had faded, their promises empty. She was alone, her boast of replacing Anthony in 24 hours now a bitter irony. Mia's turning point came unexpectedly. Cleaning out her suitcase, she found an old notebook where Anthony had jotted ideas for her app. His precise handwriting, full of encouragement, hit her like a wave. She sat on the floor, tracing his notes, and faced the truth. She'd discarded the one person who'd believed in her potential. Her pride had cost her everything, not just Anthony, but her own direction. She opened her laptop and typed a letter, not expecting a reply, but needing to release the weight. Anthony, I was blind to your worth. My words were a mistake, born of arrogance. I'm sorry, and I'm trying to change. She sent it to his old email, knowing it might never reach him. Anthony, meanwhile, was preparing for a keynote at a Silicon Valley summit. His speech, focused on innovation through resilience, drew a packed room. Emily watched from the front row, her nod a silent boost as he spoke with clarity and conviction. Afterward, venture capitalists swarmed, offering partnerships, but Anthony stayed grounded, crediting his team. Later, over dinner, Emily raised a glass. To building something real, she said. Anthony smiled, clinking her glass. To choosing what lasts. Their partnership wasn't just love, it was a commitment to growth, forged in respect. Mia took her first steps toward change. She enrolled in an online coding bootcamp, determined to rebuild her skills. The work was brutal, late nights wrestling with syntax, early mornings at the coffee shop, but it gave her purpose. She stopped chasing shallow connections, focusing instead on her own path. One evening, she attended a local tech meetup, her first in months. She listened, took notes, and asked questions, her humility drawing a mentor's interest. It wasn't redemption, but a start. Weeks later, Mia sat in a cafe, rewriting her resume. Across the room, a couple laughed softly, their ease reminding her of what she'd lost. She didn't resent them. She was learning to let go. Her phone pinged, a message from the bootcamp mentor offering a freelance project. It was small, but it was hers. She smiled faintly, the first spark of pride in something she'd earned. Anthony never saw Mia's letter. His old email was deactivated, his focus on the future. He and Emily were planning the startup's next phase, eyeing global markets. One night, walking along the Embarcadero, Emily asked, "Do you ever think about LA?" Anthony paused, the city's lights reflecting on the water. "It taught me what I don't want," he said. "And what I do." He squeezed her hand, their steps in sync. Mia's journey was slower, but she was moving. Her freelance project led to another, then a part-time role at a small tech firm. She didn't flaunt her progress. She worked in silence, letting results speak. The woman who once claimed she could replace Anthony in a day now understood. True value wasn't in fleeting attention, but in steady effort. Her boast had been her undoing, but her regret was her teacher. The lesson was clear. Anthony didn't win through vengeance. He won by rising above, choosing a life of purpose over pain. Mia didn't lose to punishment. She lost to her own hubris, and only through humility could she rebuild. Time doesn't erase mistakes, but it offers a chance to learn, if you're willing to face the truth.